He said he was at a work retreat, but I saw his car outside a motel. I never expected to become the kind of person who snoops. I used to think that kind of behavior was toxic, that if you had to go looking for something, the relationship was already over. But when my gut started screaming at me louder than my own logic, I broke my own rules. My husband, Ryan, told me he was going on a weekend work retreat upstate. It wasn't unusual, his company did these once a quarter for team building, and I never questioned them. But this time felt off. He'd been distant for weeks. Not overtly cruel, not outwardly cold, just detached. Conversations were shorter. His laughter felt forced. And the way he looked at his phone when he thought I wasn't watching, it was like he was guarding something. He packed Friday morning before work, tossing in hiking boots, flannel shirts, and a company-branded water bottle. I kissed him goodbye like always, and he said, "Love you, I'll text when I get there." But he didn't. Not that day. Not the next morning either. I got one message Saturday afternoon, spotty reception. Hike went long. Miss you. That was it. So I did something I hadn't done in our entire 8 years of marriage. I got in my car and drove. The retreat was supposedly at a lodge near Lake Emerald, a popular spot about 2 hours away. I knew the place. We'd even stayed there once for our anniversary. I called the front desk pretending to be his coworker, said I left my charger in his room and wanted to know the number. The woman said, "I'm sorry, there's no one by that name checked in here this weekend." I hung up and just sat in my car for a moment, the silence heavier than it should have been. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe they switched locations last minute. Maybe he booked somewhere else. I opened up the Find My iPhone app, not something I normally used, but he'd shared his location with me years ago during a vacation, and I guess he forgot. My heart dropped. He wasn't anywhere near Lake Emerald. He was less than 20 minutes from our house, in the city, parked outside a motel just off the freeway. The Blue Pines Inn. A cheap, roadside place with flickering neon signs and hourly rates. I stared at the screen for what felt like forever, hoping the dot would move, hoping maybe he was just stopping for gas or lunch or anything that would make this feel less awful. But it didn't move. Not for hours. Eventually, I drove there. And sure enough, parked in the corner of the lot, mostly hidden behind an old pickup, was Ryan's car. His license plate. The dent on the bumper. It was unmistakable. I took a picture and left. I couldn't bring myself to go inside. I didn't want to see what was behind those doors. I already knew. I didn't cry on the way home. I didn't scream. I didn't even feel angry yet. It was a strange numbness, like my brain had shut down the emotional part to keep me from unraveling. I went home, fed the cat, and sat on the couch in the quiet. When he came home Sunday night, around 11 p.m., he walked in like nothing had happened. His backpack slung over his shoulder, the smell of hotel soap still clinging to him. "Hey, babe," he said, dropping a kiss on my head. "Missed you." I looked up at him and smiled. "How was the retreat?" He smiled, tired but convincing. "Good. Exhausting, but good. Did some trust exercises, campfire talks. You know, the usual." He even pulled out a souvenir mug with the company logo and said they handed them out at the end. I asked questions. He answered them all. Details, jokes, even stories about people from work. If I didn't already know, I would have believed him. But I knew. And I was just getting started. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed next to him, staring at the ceiling, going over every detail in my mind like a crime scene analyst. I had proof, his car, the motel, the lie about the retreat, but I didn't have answers. And worse, I didn't know who she was. Because it had to be a she. I'd known Ryan for over a decade, and while I never expected he'd cheat, if he did, it would be with someone soft-voiced and fragile, someone who made him feel needed in a way I no longer did. That was always his weakness, the need to feel important. The next morning, I told him I was going to visit my sister for a few days. She lived an hour away and it wasn't unusual for me to spend the weekend there. Ryan nodded, barely listening, already scrolling through his phone. I packed a bag and drove to my sister's, but I didn't go inside. I sat in the driveway, turned around, and headed back into the city. I parked across the street from the motel. I wasn't sure what I was looking for exactly, maybe closure, maybe a face to match the betrayal. After a few hours, just before lunch, a woman walked out of room 14. Blonde, mid-30s, petite. She looked like someone out of a yoga catalog, leggings, oversized sweatshirt, messy bun. She tossed a gym bag into the back seat of a silver hatchback and stood there for a minute, checking her phone. Then she walked around to the driver's side and drove off. I followed her. She stopped at a coffee shop a few blocks away. I parked and waited, watched her through the window as she ordered a drink, sat down, and started scrolling through her phone. I took pictures, of her car, the license plate. I didn't know her name yet, but I would. Back home that night, Ryan made pasta and poured us both a glass of wine. He told me a story about a funny thing that happened at the retreat. I smiled and laughed in the right places, asking just enough questions to keep him talking, to catch any slip. He didn't. He'd rehearsed this. So I changed tactics. Over the next few days, I began to dig. Social media, company directories, reverse image searches. It didn't take long. The woman's name was Alyssa. She was divorced, no kids, and guess what, she used to work at Ryan's company. She'd left a year ago, but they still followed each other online. Her Instagram was mostly private, but her profile picture was unmistakable. Same face, same blonde hair. Same yoga aesthetic. I even found a picture of them together, buried deep in his tagged photos from a company holiday party 2 years ago. They were standing close, his hand on her lower back. My stomach turned. But I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I started making copies. Backed up photos, GPS screenshots, even the motel's guest log I got after pretending to be his assistant confirming a corporate stay. His name was right there, scribbled in pen. Room 14. I wasn't just preparing for a confrontation. I was preparing for a war. The final straw came a week later. He said he had to work late. Classic. I checked his location. Motel. Again. Same room. This time, I didn't just take a picture of the car. I booked the room next door. I waited in silence, lights off, listening to muffled voices through the wall, her laugh, his low whisper. And then the creak of the bed. I held the phone tight in my hand, recording. My chest was on fire. Rage, humiliation, grief, they all collided in that moment. I wanted to scream, to bang on the door, to break it down and drag them both into the light. But I didn't. Because I had a better plan. I waited until the morning. I didn't sleep, not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want to. I wanted every second of that night to burn into my memory, to fuel the storm I was building. When I finally left the motel, I didn't go home. I went to a lawyer. A divorce lawyer. I didn't want to be the wife who begged for answers. I didn't want to be the woman who let herself be gaslit into forgiveness. I wanted out, and I wanted to make sure Ryan didn't walk away clean. My lawyer was sharp, direct, and a little cold, which I liked. I showed her everything, the photos, the GPS logs, the audio. She leaned back, nodded once, and said, "We can work with this." That's all I needed to hear. Ryan had no idea what was coming. He thought he was still playing his quiet little game, coming home late with excuses that barely held together. He kissed me in the mornings, texted me sweet nothings, and every time he did, I smiled back. Because I already knew the day I would strike, his birthday. He had planned a small get-together at our place. A few close friends, some coworkers, including a few who were there the night I snapped that holiday party photo with Alyssa. I told him I'd handle the decorations and food. He didn't suspect a thing. The day arrived. I wore a red dress, his favorite. I cooked his favorite meal. Set the table beautifully. Everything looked perfect, and he was beaming. Our guests arrived one by one. Laughter filled the house. He poured drinks, hugged friends, cracked jokes. And then I stood up and tapped my glass. "I have a surprise for Ryan," I said. He grinned. "Yeah." I nodded and walked over to the TV. I connected my phone and played the slideshow I had made. It started with innocent photos of us, wedding, vacations, birthdays. Everyone smiled. Then, the images shifted. His car. The motel. Alyssa. The room number. The logbook. A screenshot of her social media page. The holiday party photo. And finally, the audio from the night next door. The room went dead. Ryan stared at the screen like he'd been shot. A few people gasped. One of his coworkers, who I'm sure knew about Alyssa, put down her drink and walked out. Another muttered something like, "Jesus, man," and followed. Ryan didn't say a word. I looked at him and said, "Happy birthday." Then I walked out. I drove straight to my sister's. She already knew everything. She poured me wine and held me while I cried, not for Ryan, but for the years I'd lost thinking he loved me the same way I loved him. Over the next few days, everything moved quickly. My lawyer filed, and Ryan tried to reach out, calls, texts, emails. He even came to my sister's house once, but she threatened to call the cops. It wasn't about revenge for me. It was about truth. I wanted everyone to see who he really was. He had lied, gaslit, and manipulated me for months. Maybe longer. He had treated our marriage like a side hustle and thought I'd never find out. But I did. I never saw Alyssa again. She blocked me on everything before I even had the chance to message her. I didn't need to. She'd seen the slideshow too. One of his friends filmed the whole thing and put it online, blurred faces, of course, but the story was clear. It went viral for a while. Comments were mostly supportive. A few trolls, but I didn't care. I didn't need the internet's validation. I had my peace. What do you think? Tell us in the comments. Like the video and hit the subscribe button for more Reddit stories.